Hello and welcome to Season 5, Episode 13 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today, as always, by lead... No, he's not lead anymore, is he? No, that was in the past. I've gone back to my muscle memory intros there. He's now Principal Cloud Engineer and co-host John Goodall. How are you doing today, John? Nearly did you a disservice there.
Oh, yeah, that's 4 months ago. I'd like to say, because I've just been on leave for kind of a week and a half, that I'm rested and relaxed and recuperated. But I've come back to a support queue that's just ridiculous, so I'm stressed.
Ah, okay. And what did you do in your week off? Did you have some
Nothing.
downtime? Oh,
I
that's
did
good.
not. I think I played Pokemon for a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you manage to do nothing with two young children? That's quite a feat.
Grandparents.
Ah, nice. Well played.
Well, I've got the week off, and then this week they're kind of at holiday club things for a bit. So it's like, okay, cool.
Fair enough. Sadly, we didn't have any grandparents nearby when our kids were younger, so we didn't have that benefit. Had holiday clubs, but they cost money.
Don't they just?
Grandparents are free.
I did the maths. I did the maths for the two of them. It's slightly cheaper to send them to that than it is to go and get a co-working desk somewhere for the day, including like parking at lunch and stuff like that, because there isn't any anywhere near where I live. I'd have to go into Brighton, and then I'm paying to drive there, and I'm paying to park there, and I'm paying for the desk, and I'm paying for lunch, and then it works out marginally cheaper to send both of them off somewhere else.
Fair enough. You've done the maths, and it works out. Well, good to have you back. Good to be recording again. Just the two of us today. No guest joining us today. So, as regular listeners to the podcast will know, once a week I curate a list of AWS news, which I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup. And then usually John, but actually this week it was me because John was off. I picked a selection of the articles from the newsletter for us to talk about on the podcast. And I went a little bit off-piste because normally you only pick 5 articles and I picked 7. But 2 of them are pairs, so I figured that was okay. So hopefully that you can handle that little deviation there, John, from the normal. You let me do the selections and I go off-piste.
Quite. Can you even ski?
I can ski and snowboard, although I haven't done either for decades. So back to muscle memory, I'm sure there would be some, but there would be a lot of pain involved in me attempting to do that again. So I used to be able to do both reasonably well, but I haven't attempted to do either since I was in my 20s. And as I'm now in my 50s, then it'd probably take me a while to get back on the piste. So
company offsite. Log off out
maybe, yeah. Well, I could cycle up there as well. I have done on Zwift, but not in real life. So just the once. Give it a go, but not in the snow. Cycling up there in the snow would be quite a challenge, I think. So that might need to be a different time of year. Anyway, off piste we go again, but let's get back on piste and talk about the first pair of news articles that I've selected this week. And these are both about the announcement last week that AWS DevOps Agent has gone into general availability. So the first article is just the announcement that's gone into general availability, and the second one's talking a little bit more about one of the DevOps Agent use cases, which is autonomous incident response with DevOps Agent. But let's just talk a little bit. I think we did talk a bit about DevOps Agent when it was announced at reInvent 2025. So obviously it was announced in preview back in November, December, whenever it was. I don't know if it was an actual reInvent or a pre-invent. I think it was an actual reInvent in the AI monologue, which was the keynote. DevOps Agent got into general availability. Have you had a play with it yet, John?
No, it's on my list of things to do. It is. I was at a session for it a little while ago, and it's on my list of things to do. Now, there's nothing in that session that was kind of NDA'd. It was just one of those, you've got to be in the know to be in it. But it's all stuff that was available in the preview. And it looks really, really interesting. It does. I'm really excited about it because one of the things that we do for our customer base, as you well know, and as listeners probably know, if you're not new around here, if you're new around here, hi. But if you're not new around here, you know that we kind of look after infrastructure for other people. And that involves getting the pager and waking up in the middle of the night, which is no fun for anybody. What DevOps Agent is able to do is it doesn't fully replace an SRE or a person that's going to pick the phone up at the end of the day, right? It's not doing that yet. I imagine it will. at some point. I think it will. I hope it will. But as it stands, all it's doing is investigations. And that, to be honest, is probably 80% of the battle, right? Because you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, your phone's screaming, you've got no idea what's going on. You read the error message, you read the ping from PagerDuty or OpsGenie or BetterStack or whoever you're using to give you PTSD. And you kind of work out what's going on. Then you start digging into the logs and you go, the problem's over here, the problem's over there. You look at these million different monitors that you're looking. Then you work out what the problem is. Then you go, oh, yeah, flip. And unless it's a really, really serious problem, 90% of things that we have to deal with at any rate are fairly simple. I was getting hammered, block that IP address, or, oh yeah, 99% disk, and then it's going to start dropping orders or whatever. Let's just give it some more of that, please. And then the problem goes away. And there's also this concept that, I don't know if anyone else has used this term, but I've coined a bit of an internal term of a 20-minute fix, which is not it takes 20 minutes. Might take you 2 minutes, but it'll hold for 20 minutes. Like, it'll hold for long enough for you to start to really understand what's going on. What DevOps Agent is hopefully able to do, what it's able to do right now, is it will shortcut that whole investigation process and actually give you a really good sort of signal to noise ratio on what's going on. So you don't have to go and look through every single CloudWatch log file. You don't have to go and look at all your canaries and see, well, this endpoint's down and that endpoint's down, and correlate them to the logs and correlate them to exit codes and response rates and these sorts of things. It's done that for you. And more importantly, because it's an LLM, you haven't had to teach it how to do that. You can through, I forget what they call it skills, which is one of those really annoying things, right? Because skills is also a thing for Claude code, but
and Alexa
and various other things.
They just unplugged her when I said that, because she would have interrupted.
Yes, you're supposed to call them ALEXA and that kind of thing. You're not supposed to say their names. But it's the sort of thing that it's a runbook, effectively, right? It's a runbook, which that is the correct term. It's if this, do that, run all of these steps. So you can give it some if you've got known failure modes and things that you need to investigate. If you've got particular paths, like your application better than AWS probably does, hopefully. That a Laravel app is going to be CPU and RAM bound. So you look at, if you get a CPU alarm or if you get an alert for that box or your site's gone down or whatever, that the runbook is, we go and look at this process, we go and look at that process, we look at our resource utilization, we look at blah, 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 blah. And then that's something that you've taught it how to do. I use taught in a loose sort of sense because you've just given it a if this, then that sort of document. AWS has done some as well by their engineers and scientists, apparently. So I imagine the data scientists have had a stab at this as well. And then because, again, it's an LLM and there's sub-agents and things going on, it's agentic. It's just learning as well. So it's scanning your infrastructure, scanning your telemetry, which means you don't have to teach it everything, right? So you get the page at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's already done the investigation. But the thing that it's not doing is it's not then going off and going, oh, I could fix that. And then, increasing the disk or whatever. It's not doing that. Hopefully it will, because that is an absolute game changer. But there's a huge amount of trust that you've got to have there. You've got to have a trust that it's done the right thing. It's gone down the right paths. It's doing the right things. And it's not going to go off and go, oh, yeah, we've run out of disk because all of these logs are filled up. But I'm going to go and delete all of these files that are doing stuff anyway. Oh, no, it's all still down because I deleted the website. But the disk's fixed. No, don't do that. Right, it's the sort of thing that you've got to be quite careful with. It's doing things. I think a good middle ground from here would be something like automated investigations, and then it can only do pre-approved actions, i.e. it must run an SSM document or something like that, something that you've had to build and tell it what to do. So it's giving that kind of automation investigation side of things. And if that goes, oh, I know what this is, it can go off and do that in such a way that's non-destructive, right? Or that's destructive in a way that you approve. I.e., if you need to clear up some disk space, run this because it will clear up things that I know can be gotten rid of. And if that doesn't solve the problem, don't randomly delete other stuff. Wake someone up. So that's not what it's doing yet. I really want it to go that way. I really hope it does. But for now, I'm still really excited by this because it's still able to go and do lots of the legwork in terms of working out what the problem is, even if it can't fix it.
Looks like some pretty big customers using it already in the customer success stories there. Western Governors University, Zen Chef, T-Mobile, Granola. It looks like it's out there in production in the wild. Some integrations as well. I think you mentioned PagerDuty, the obvious one, that can feed directly into it. And can it act like an SRE and just go through its own kind of logical troubleshooting process, or do you really have to teach it everything?
So as I understand it, it can go through its own logical stuff, right? You can teach it stuff, but it will go and just look at log files and go, oh, these are the error messages and that kind of thing. That does rely on your application giving sensible error messages, because if you're just spewing it, like Microsoft is horrible for this, just like Windows operating system error codes. If all your application is doing is spewing out error codes, it's not going to have a hope in hell. But if your message is something like Lambda timed out, it probably could work that one out.
Speaking of Microsoft, there is an Azure integration as well as Azure DevOps integration with Azure pipelines to track deployments and code changes in Azure environments, if you so wished to do.
So Azure DevOps isn't Azure, that's one of those things that is Microsoft is bad at branding. That's their answer to GitLab.
Yeah, Azure pipelines, I guess.
Yeah, so, which is not in Azure either, as far as I understand it. Again, that's their CI/CD platform, but everything is Azure branded in the same way that Amazon's terrible. Everything is Q branded. It's Q for developer, Q for business, Q for Quick Suite.
Is it?
All of these.
I thought they're all gone now.
I have no idea. There might be Kiro for this, that, and the other. I don't keep up.
Yeah,
that's why I do this, to try and keep up.
Indeed, yeah. So the second post is really just kind of going into a specific deployment, I think. So the first post is really just announcing the general availability. The second one just kind of walks you through how you could set this up in an AWS environment to handle things. So any thoughts on that one?
No, not really. Not beyond kind of what I've spoken about. As you say, it takes signals in from a number of different places. I don't know which direction all of these things are. I think they're all inbound. So you say PagerDuty, right? I don't think they're all inbound. Correction. So I think it can take inbound stuff from places from telemetry, Datadog, Dynatrace, Grafana, New Relic, Splunk. Those are the ones in the list, and I'm sure there's a few others. And I think the things like PagerDuty and Slack are outbound. So it can't respond to a PagerDuty page, but it could create one, is I think the directionality of that. And to be honest, for me, that makes sense, much as I'd like it to be able to respond to a PagerDuty page. So if you've got, and it's not an uncommon setup. It's not an uncommon setup at all, where PagerDuty is the root of all evil. So everything goes to PagerDuty. If you then don't want to have to rejig everything so that this is responding and then raising the page. And if you don't want duplicate pages, because that could be a problem, right? If you've got this responding and PagerDuty is also being woken up by Pingdom or your URL monitor or whatever, you could then theoretically end up with duplicate pages going on if it's kind of doing that, unless there's a way of tying those up. Maybe, I don't know, I've not looked into it. But you absolutely don't want it to sort of go, oh, your endpoint is down, oh, I've done an investigation, and then they get munged and you just get two phone screaming events, and then one, your stats look terrible because you just doubled up on your incidents immediately, and two, that's just going to annoy your engineers, right? Yes, you've done all the legwork, great. That doesn't help me because you've just shouted it at me. So hopefully there's a way of making that play nicely. What I'd really, really like is a way for PagerDuty to send to DevOps Agent to go, this is this one, this is in this account, this is this workload, this is this whatever. It will respond to that, go and do the investigation, and then update the incident. That would be phenomenal. But I don't think it can do that just yet.
Well, it is only just gone into GA, so I'm sure that the features will keep coming thick and fast, as they do tend to do with all AWS services. So this is really a kind of a day one product. It was only launched into preview, 4 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
And now it's gone into GA. So we shall keep our eyes on it and continue to discuss new features as and when they become available. So definitely one for you to have a play with, I think, John, and see what you think, because very relevant in our space. And if it's relevant in the listener spaces, dive in. There's the second article, as I said, has got a kind of a sample deployment. So have a play with it and see what you think. Speaking of AWS features, our next pair of articles is a couple of features that were announced last week for Amazon ECS managed instances. The first of those features was the fact that ECS Managed Instances now supports Amazon EC2 Instance Store. And the second is that Amazon ECS has announced managed daemons for ECS managed instances. So let's go into the instance store one first. John, why you want local storage on your ECS managed instance?
I mean, because it's quick and cheap and kind of there. Instant store is a bit of a blast from the past because it's not the sort of thing you really talk about anymore, right? Instant store was the sort of thing that happened on pre-Nitro EC2s, where you could bring them up and they didn't have EBS volumes attached to them. Well, why would you want that? Well, because the disks were they're in the same rack and that kind of deal. And they were really fast and they came with the server and they were really cheap because you did pay extra and they were really fast because they were like connected to it and all this kind of thing. It's not the sort of thing that I really use because we use much more modern instance types and we don't use any of the bare metal types, which is the sort of thing that you'd find this on. If, however, you have very latency sensitive workloads, this is quite useful to you, right? Because there is latency going backwards and forwards to EBS because EBS is not on the same, it's not in the same rack, right? It may as well, it's not quite, it's more SAN than NAS. It's server attached rather than network attached, but it's not there next to it. It's not plugged in. It's not the computer's hard drive in kind of old money, where Instant Store is. So if you've got very, very latency sensitive containerized workloads and you're using managed instances, well, now you can use that, I guess. I would think the number of people that need this is vanishingly small, though.
Yeah, it seems that cloud computing is a bit like fashion. It's kind of cyclical, isn't it? These things just come back every once in a while. Ooh, instant store, let's have a new instant store trend, like flared jeans or something like
that. No. Let them stay dead.
They never really died. They just kind of, reduce in popularity and then have a resurgence. But so that's instant store. Let's talk about managed daemons.
So I read this, I would admit, 15 minutes ago, because as I've said several times on the podcast, I don't read the articles before, which is, it's fine when I'm doing the picks, but when I'm not, it's even more of a challenge. So I speed read them as we get going in the recording. This is quite.
I didn't try to trip you up, except with the pairings.
This is quite interesting to me, and it's not something I didn't realize ECS didn't already do this. So this is something. Listeners don't need to hear me hacking my lung out. So this is something that I draw similarities to Kubernetes DaemonSets, which to hear me saying, oh, that's the thing that Kubernetes does, and I didn't realize ECS didn't. That's really weird. That's really weird for me to say that.
But maybe ECS does. But this is specifically about ECS managed instances.
I think that's probably more likely because I was pretty sure it did this already. So a daemon instance or a daemon set in Kubernetes language is the concept that every single node server in your cluster should have one and only one of thing running, right? Again, for the Kubernetes inclined, it's the sort of thing you'd say, I want New Relic or Datadog Agent or whatever, that kind of thing. One and only one on each of the servers that's giving me compute capacity, please. Because you don't want, say you've got 5 servers, there's a few ways of saying you want 5 of these things, right? One of them is a replica set, which is, I want 5 of them. But that's not really saying where you want them. You're going to get 5 of them, and they could all end up on the same server if it's got space for it. A daemon set is, I want 5 of these. I want 1 on every single server. On all 5 of my servers, I should have 1, right? And what that also means is if you bring one server on, or if you remove one server, that just automatically updates itself. It's, I want 1 and only 1 of these on every server, please. And that's what this is doing for managed instances. So I think you're right, and that it was available for old school EC2 compute. And it was not really something you needed for Fargate because you have no control over the servers. So you had to handle that sort of thing differently with sort of sidecar containers and things, which is fine because you could do that. And now this is available for ECS managed instances. So I think what this is doing, as you say, is it's something that was available before, and it's just bringing managed instances in line with EC2 self-managed.
Fair enough. There we go. ECS managed instances getting a lot of love last week. Well, that's it for the pairings. You'll be pleased to hear, John. So just 3 more articles to go, and each one stands on its own. So let's talk about this article on the AWS Compute blog, all about building high-performance apps with AWS Lambda managed instances. So all about managed instances this week, which is a new thing, isn't it? The sort of very back end of 2025, everything started getting managed instances. Is this what Brian called Lambda heavy?
Yes.
Or was that Lambda, the durable functions?
Oh, I don't know. I thought this is what he called Lambda heavy, and I called durable functions step functions heavy, I think, or step functions light, something like that.
Okay, let's go with Lambda heavy.
I think this was Lambda heavy. We'll have to ask him.
Or Lambda metal. I don't know.
Oh dear. That does
Lambda heavy metal. But, yeah.
There we go. There we go. It's a glam funk band, really. So we have gone into the managed instances quite hard this week, haven't we? So this is kind of, I still have very mixed feelings about Lambda heavy, as we're calling it now. I have very mixed feelings about this because to me, the whole point of Lambda, and this was the strap line of the service, and I think it still is run apps without thinking about infrastructure, or run code without thinking about infrastructure, right? You just gave the system your code and it ran it. You said, here's the entry point, and you wrote the code. Cool. And it said, here's what the event's going to look like. And then you worked with that. Brilliant. Request response. And if you had to worry about things like concurrency and making sure that it was available at all times and all this kind of thing, then you did that. And over the past, I don't know how old Lambda is, I should know that, but over the past X number of years, I don't know how old it is, AWS have done phenomenal feats of engineering in improving that within that way of doing things, right? The billing when it first came out was per 100 milliseconds, and then it was per 10, and now it's per millisecond. So the billing has gotten more and more and more granular. Cold starts on certain runtimes when it was a new service were a real problem. They were a real problem. And now they're basically not. And then you've got things like snap start for Java, for these languages that cold starts was still a problem because it just takes a bleeding age for it to sort of come online, and you have to run Java because you're a, masochist. But now what you've got is you can run Lambda on servers, but Lambda's going to manage it for you. And I think it also supports spot instances now. It's like, what? So this is just kind of, the whole thing has come from a really clear delineation of this is a nice serverless function as a service to this ridiculous mush of I've got no idea what I need. And I've got 2 pro certs. Like I've got no idea what I actually need to pick anymore. So I just sort of pick the thing that I know. That said, I'm sure there is a use case for this, right? Because what you can do with this is you can say, here is my capacity. Maybe you need your server to look like a certain way. I think the argument is if it's something that you need really high CPU capacity, because Lambda is just kind of one knob. You turn one knob and you get a certain thing. And once you go above, I think 6 gig of memory, you can't have any more processors. But if you really, really, really need lots of them, then you could do it this way. Or if you need GPUs, then you do it this way for a GPU-based workload. But this is giving you kind of a walkthrough of how you would go and set that up. And it's framing it in the high-performance compute kind of space, because I think that's the only place where this makes sense, right? For your general day-to-day workloads, I'm running an API system, I'm running, it's a static site and there's an API behind it that hits API gateway and Lambdas do things. This doesn't make sense for most people. I think the only place this makes sense is high performance compute, or somewhere where you need something running really, really often, really constantly. And this then becomes slightly cheaper than provision concurrency. I think that's kind of the only thing that makes sense to me. But at that point, you're then you're using Lambda as a packaging and execution layer, which I suppose has value because you don't then have to worry about packaging the application. You don't have to worry about, you still have to worry about transpiling and compiling in the right languages, but you don't have to worry about runtime environments, I guess. So you're but then that's a Fargate task, isn't it? Like this is where I get really confused. And this is where I think the issue is because all of this starts to become, what do you actually need? I think if you need this, you probably already know that you need this. And if you're not sure, you don't.
Yeah, that's probably a reasonable summation. Perhaps we need a product manager to come on and explain it all to us.
How many of them work for AWS? Not Amazon generally. How many of them work for AWS? Maybe a few less now.
Well, yeah, very
Too
possibly.
soon.
Yeah, possibly.
Too soon.
Well, on that note, let's move along to our next article, which is about migrating, but not jobs. This is about migrating from Amazon ElastiCache. Migrating to Amazon ElastiCache for Valkey from, I guess, Redis. So Valkey, not new, relatively new, I suppose. I think last year did it come out?
Ish.
Yeah. So it's, as I understand, it's Amazon's own caching engine, and it's cheaper than Redis. So that would be your primary motivator for wanting to migrate to Valkey from Redis. Would be to save money. So if you're spending a lot on ElastiCache Redis, then this could well be for you. So as I say, it's not brand new, but maybe about a year old. This is an article on the AWS database blog, all about best practices for migrating to ElastiCache for Valkey. And I think, have you done some, John? Or have you just new deployments?
A handful of new deployments, not really done any migrations. There is a push button option in the console. Just go, and it'll kind of do it. Valkey, it's an interesting one. It's another one of those stories that we've heard about over the years. And the other obvious one being Elasticsearch, OpenSearch, where, excuse me, the original provider had really goodwill with the community. They were running, and Terraform actually is the other one as well, having an open source model. And I think this was a BSD license before BSD 3 clause. I don't actually know what the license is. I don't tend to read most of these. Like, I know what Apache and MIT licenses are. They're do what you like, but we're not going to support you. I don't know what the BSD license is. But they changed their license model so that they had a couple of different ones depending on kind of who was running it, who was using it. It didn't preclude Amazon from hosting Redis, and they still do, I think. But well, I know they still do. Like, I've been looking at it today, and as far as I know, there's no plans for them to not do that. But forked OpenSearch, Valkey, so many different things, and my brain is frazzled. And the idea is long term, it's going to be just a net pattern match to Redis open source, which is an interesting decision, I think, because if they can pattern match it and just say forever this is going to match the functionality of Redis open source, and you can just drop it straight in, but it's going to be 30% cheaper, that I really kind of want to see where that goes long term. In terms of this migrating, from one to the other, because allegedly, I've never done it, but it's been bandied around so much that it is, you should be able to just go drop it in, and it'll be exactly the same. You might have to reseed your database because Redis is a database, Valkey is a database. It's just an in-memory one. So you might have to reseed it depending on what you're doing with it. But it should just be fine in theory, to the extent that when it came out, there was as I say, in the console, there's a one-click kind of you can do it option. I wouldn't recommend doing that with your production workloads, admittedly. I recommend maybe try that with staging as a quick way of kind of giving it a test. They do talk about a success story in this, and they say a global leader in the travel technology industry. So that means they're not allowed to tell you who it is, which is fun.
Anonymous case study. Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd absolutely name drop the hell out of that, because it would be like Atoll or something, wouldn't it? They can't. Well,
they're the regulator, aren't they? Atoll.
Oh yeah. Maybe it's I don't know. It's not going to be Thomas
Cook. Could be
Tui.
Yeah.
It's not going to be It's not going to be Thomas Cook, is it?
No. I don't think there are any clues in the case study.
No.
Other than the global leader. It's travel technology, actually. So, yeah.
Maybe they've said that because you'd never know who they were unless you worked in the industry, maybe.
Yeah.
Don't know. But yeah, as you say, the migration was driven by the need to remain open source, which is an interesting one. That feels like anyone that says we need to use open source technology rather than licensed technology usually doesn't understand the difference, in my experience. Don't know, but cost and performance and scalable caching layer, fine. Yeah, this realistically wasn't it must stay open source requirement. This is a migration because we want to save 30% on our bill. Thanks very much. So they did, and it was fine. Is the long and the short of this, with only a short period of slightly elevated latencies and no downtime. Although not required, they did take backups. Okay, what a nonsense statement. It wasn't required, but it might have been, so they did them. That's the point, isn't it? No.
What, of taking backups during a migration?
Yeah. That's just okay. Cool. And then you see their what is this response times? This is a cost graph where their cost has gone and it's dropped from just shy of 1,000 a day to just shy of 800 a day. So they have saved, a couple of $100 a day, which is no mean feat. But on a bill that big, where you're spending $1,000 a day on Redis, that's probably not even a sniff on a line item. Let's be honest here. But it's good that you can save some money. The service is going great guns. There's an in-place upgrade, as I've said a couple of times. You could do a snapshot-based migration, which is probably what I'd recommend for most people. Okay, there'll be a bit of downtime, but I would probably recommend you do something that gives you a better rollback option. Probably, and dry run these things a few times. But yeah, it's worth a read. Valkey is an interesting one. I'm always very wary of in-place upgrades, but that's just because of what I do for a living, and I've seen a number of them go wrong. I'm sure it'd be fine if you tried it, but actually take the backup that wasn't required.
Just let the DevOps agent do it, and then blame AI if it goes wrong.
Yes. Save the AI, throw the human under the bus.
Yeah. We could always tell DevOps agent to take some backups first, but he probably does it. Well, on that note, let's move along to our final article for this week. And this one is about a disaster. So we're talking about avoiding disasters there, but this one is about a data breach experienced by the European Commission. It's an article on a third-party website, Bleeping Computer. And the headline is European Commission investigating breach after Amazon cloud account hack. So what specifically, John, do you think happened here? There's lots of adverts on this, by the way, and you can see that I've been looking at bicycles because in the middle of the article, there's a whole bunch of bicycles that I've obviously been looking at. And I'm trying to get to buy them.
Are you getting the advert for your rotator cuff feeling stuck, or is that just because I'm old?
No, that was me specifically for you. Yeah. Oh no, I am getting that one. Yeah.
Yeah, right at the top.
It's disappeared. Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is. It's loading very slowly for some reason. On shoulder relief news.
Yes, I thought that was just going to be a me thing, right? Because you can see my amusing little strap on is I'm more tape than man, although that's my feet at the minute because I've still got the tendon issue going on down there. But I thought that was just going to be me.
No, that must be the global article. It's not a dynamic displayed. Advert, a global advert. Although it is relevant for me because I do have a knackered shoulder. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about data breaches in amongst all the ads.
As opposed to shoulder breaches. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot actually being said in this article. There was a breach and they pulled 350 gigabytes of data from multiple databases, including multiple databases. But we don't know who was breached. We don't know what was breached, other than the fact that some databases were included. We don't know how it was done. We don't know where the attack came from, or as I say, who was targeted. We have no information of anything at all going on with this, apart from the fact that they had access to European Commission employees' data. So the European Commission, I guess, was the target, but this is an incredibly poorly written article and it's very kind of clickbaity. It's not been officially disclosed and it was on AWS, but like 40% of the internet's on AWS. So that's like, AWS was hacked. Okay, and in other news, it is Tuesday and water is wet.
But the weather's dry at the moment, that is news.
That is newsworthy. Yeah. So, okay, right, whatever. There was a security breach against the commission, and it was in AWS. And odds are it wasn't an AWS problem. Odds are the commission did something wrong. And that's not just me being anti-EU Commission, although I'm quite anti-EU Commission. That's not just me being anti-EU and anti-EU Commission. The likeliest scenario here, as far as I can work out, is it's a configuration error on the part of the customer, the EU Commission in this case.
So I've just Googled it, and I found another article which does give a little bit more information, and it tells us that hackers gained access to the European Commission AWS account using an API key compromised on March 19th in the supply chain attack on Aqua Security's Trivy vulnerability scanner. I think the Trivy supply chain thing was quite big news recently. You may not have noticed if you've been off on leave, but certainly I've heard
was
other
that the
people
Axiom
referring to the
thing?
Trivy. No, that was a different one, I think.
So many going on.
Yeah, that was another supply chain issue. Yeah, I think the Trivy one. Their GitHub repo had been compromised in an attack involving a GitHub Actions workflow issue. Some releases were deleted and malicious versions of the code extensions, blah, blah, blah. So it was a GitHub Actions compromise that has led to a European Commission API key being leaked, which has led to this data breach. So...
So from an AWS and cloud perspective, okay, just another Tuesday, right? There's nothing kind of particularly new or novel about this, but we are definitely seeing more and more supply chain attacks going on now, because I think it's gotten to the point where that is probably the weak link, where you have to go upstream and you have to get some sort of dodgy package into an NPM repo or something, because everything else is reasonably well hardened. It's like the case of in the 70s, if you wanted to nick someone's car, you just nick the car. Now you have to break into their house to steal the keys because you can't nick the car. And I think that's just kind of the evolution of what we're seeing here, just within the tech space, is going after a target directly is a lot harder than it used to be. So we go upstream and then we can get some API keys and then we can get in, and it's a lot less obvious because we're using a legitimate key, even if it shouldn't be legitimate anymore.
You don't have to break in and get the key if you've got one of those repeater things and the key's close enough to the window.
Oh, the flipper zero thing. Yeah, they're cool.
Pick up the key's radio signal and retransmit it to the car, get in and drive off.
You see, that's why I keep all of my car keys in a Faraday cage.
What else do you keep in there?
Would that I could put my phone in it overnight and then PagerDuty wouldn't wake me up.
Well, I can wake up the DevOps agent.
Yes, and then it still wouldn't be able to wake me up afterwards. Yes, that is absolutely on the list of things to look at. It really is. But yeah, like I say, we're seeing more and more supply chain attacks, and it's a thing to be concerned about. But there's not a whole heap you can do unless you start rolling your own custom libraries for everything. And just why would you do that?
Well, there we go. On that, we have reached the end of our time for Season 5, Episode 13 of Logicast. I was going to say we've got through it without any issues being episode 13, which is unlucky for some, but I haven't done my wrap-up yet, so perhaps my teeth will fall out when I do attempt to do it. But we have reached the end of our time for Season 5, Episode 13 of Logicast. If you are still listening and you have enjoyed it, please do tell your friends, give us a like, give us a rating. We are available to download from wherever you get your podcasts, and if you'd like to see the funny faces we're pulling when we're talking to you, we're also on the Logicata YouTube channel. Thank you, John, for your insights as always, diving straight back in after your week off into support and podcasting, back in at the deep end. And we will be back next week with another episode of Logicast for you. Until then, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.